Joe Biden, who is expected to formally announce his re-election campaign this week, has won the full support of his party despite questions about his age and middling approval ratings. Former President Trump has proved to be the greatest unifying force in Democratic politics in the last decade. And the same factors that caused the party to rally behind Mr. Biden then are still present today. Biden opens a new back door on immigration. Congress has yet to pass an immigration overhaul, but President Biden has used his executive authority to significantly expand the number of legal immigrants entering the U.S., significantly expanding the use of humanitarian parole programs for people escaping war and political turmoil around the world. The Supreme Court ruled 7-2 on Friday to preserve access to mifepristone while a legal battle over the drug's FDA approval works its way through the court system. Mifepristone is one of the two pills used in the most common abortion method in the U.S. This was the court's first major abortion ruling since overturning Roe v. Wade last summer. American diplomats were evacuated from Sudan. The country has collapsed into civil conflict after tensions between rival generals erupted into violence this month. The fighting has left at least 450 people dead. U.S. diplomats and their families were airlifted out of Sudan on Saturday, but 16,000 other U.S. citizens remain in the country. A trial is set to begin in the Pittsburgh synagogue massacre. The 2018 shooting was the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in U.S. history. 11 people were killed and 2 were injured at the Tree of Life synagogue. A 50-year-old man is accused of attacking these individuals with an AR-15 rifle and 3 handguns while shouting anti-Semitic slurs. Jury selection starts today, but could take weeks because the massacre drew such widespread attention. Susan Rice steps down as Biden's domestic policy chief. Rice's departure next month will bring to a close her prolific, wide-ranging, and at times controversial tenure. During her more than 2 years in the role, Biden has signed executive and legislative actions on health care, gun safety, student loans, policing, and other key priorities for Democrats. President Joe Biden plans to tap my good friend Julie Chavez Rodriguez as his 2024 re-election campaign manager. Chavez Rodriguez, one of the most prominent Latinas in the administration and a granddaughter of the late labor leader Cesar Chavez, is a senior advisor to the president and the director of the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. She has also held roles in the Obama-Biden administration for then Senator Kamala Harris, and she traveled with Kamala Harris when she was running for president. Broadcast bloodbath, that's what they're calling it. When today, the news that Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon are both out in a major cable news media shakeup. The news of the exits come abruptly. Today, as Fox News host Tucker Carlson was getting ready for a big interview, and CNN host Don Lemon today says he was abruptly fired without notice. He took to Twitter to say, after 17 years of working for the network, he was shocked and stunned at the way he was terminated. But both of the networks say both of these men have been involved in controversies. Nonetheless, their departures mark a seismic shift in the media landscape. This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. This is my second hour. I'm going to go deep on what happens next for Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon. Will they both receive some kind of severance package? Will they both file wrongful termination lawsuits? Will they both get big payoffs? We'll talk about that with an employment law expert and employment law mediator. She's also a KBLA host on a Saturday show called The Legal Lens with Angela Reddock Wright. My colleague, Angela Reddock Wright, will be here in the second half of this hour to help us make sense of these two terminations, firings, parting of the ways of Tucker Carlson from Fox and Don Lemon from CNN. But first in this hour, I'm going to go one-on-one with the New York State legislator over this ban, this proposed ban of menthol cigarettes in New York. So Black smokers are at the center of this fight to ban menthol cigarettes. This proposal to make New York the third state to ban menthol cigarettes has created a furious and expensive lobbying war and has divided Black leaders. A push by New York's Governor Kathy Hochul to ban menthol-flavored cigarettes has become the focal point of a fierce and expensive fight pitting tobacco companies and their lobbyists against the medical community. And caught in the middle of this battle are Black smokers who smoke menthol cigarettes at higher rates than white smokers and are the main group the ban is meant to help. Now, decades of aggressive marketing by tobacco companies have caused Black smokers to consume menthol cigarettes whose cooling sensation on the throat makes them more appealing and addictive. When we come forward, I talked to a New York State legislator who says this ban is good, not just for the health community, but also for African Americans. We talk about why some leaders are lining up behind Governor Hochul and others, including Black ministers in New York, are against the ban. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black. KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of Black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of Black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon honoring Black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for Black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of Black audiences are concerned about the lack of Black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the Black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% Black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black. Your Black. Your Black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers.
21, the Biden administration proposed a federal ban on menthol cigarettes that is making its way through the Food and Drug Administration's rulemaking process and could be the subject to legal challenges if enacted. Only 2 states have enacted bans on menthol cigarettes. Massachusetts became the first in 2019, continuing the decline in overall cigarette sales and smoking in the state, despite menthol cigarettes being smuggled in from neighboring states. And California, where a ban took effect in December, tobacco companies have begun to try to bypass the ban by selling cigarettes that mimic menthol, the latest enforcement challenge for the authorities in California. And now New York is seeking to become the third state to ban menthol cigarettes, and it has Black leaders in an uproar and not on the same side of this debate. Joining me is New York State Assembly member Rodneyce Bashot-Hermelin to help us understand what's at stake in New York and why are African Americans on opposite sides of this fight. Thank you for joining me, Assemblywoman.
Thank you so much, Areva, for having me here today.
So help us understand the argument. We know this proposed ban is supported by Governor Hochul and some African American lawmakers. What are the reasons that these lawmakers, including Governor Hochul, say this would be good for the state of New York?
Well, first of all, menthol cigarettes has been a product that has been targeting Black communities, Black and Brown communities for a very long time. And there has shown a disparity in the use of menthol cigarettes, and as well as the impact that it has on the healthcare of these communities. These big tobaccos have been specifically targeting areas where people do not have awareness of their health, where there's a disparity in the healthcare system already, low income, vulnerable. So, we have been for years and decades been trying to push to ban menthol tobacco. Now, I can say that the big tobacco companies are fighting this like crazy because it's about 60% of their revenue. And as you mentioned, California, Massachusetts are the first two states to ban it, and you can see the decline in sales. Well, you have people who are given these propagandas saying, who are hired by the big tobacco saying that it's going to kill the Black community because it's going to criminalize, it's going to have high criminalizing rate where police enforcement is going to come in and over convict and over arrest Black people with cigarettes if it's banned. Also, tax revenue is going to impact the state of New York. So it's really bad. And then they would say that, oh my God, it's discrimination. Why are we taking the choice of Black people away? Well, as you mentioned, menthol itself is a cooling product, and it was made specifically, it was systematically done to find a way for people to get hooked. And Black people have gotten hooked to the cooling field. But the actual impact, it cuts your lungs. It's actually harsher than the products that are made with just plain tobacco. So for me, I have there's a personal interest because I lost my father to lung cancer from menthol cigarettes, along with thousands of other Black children and families that year. My father was a saxophone player, and I can tell you, I would hope for you to listen to a piece of his music, but he would hold a note, it would seem like for hours, until he lost his breath to lung cancer. And it was menthol cigarette that quickly hooked my father into a deadly cycle where, again, too familiar with, and he's gone too early. And then decades later, nothing has changed. In fact, it's getting worse because our youth are getting hooked. We banned flavored cigarettes, flavored e-vaping. And now these youth are now looking for anything that's flavored. And you can see that the rate of youth, especially Black youth, using a menthol skyrocketing. Tobacco has been and continued to be the leading cause of preventable death in the U.S. And again, the sickening of the killing of Blacks and other communities of color is at an alarmingly disproportionate rate. So, we're here. I introduced this bill, Assembly Bill A3907, with support with the Senate, 72441 with my colleague Brad Hoyman, to prohibit the sale of flavored tobacco, and we're fighting it. We have Kathy Hochul, who's our governor, first woman governor, who's been supporting this, and we're still negotiating. We're hoping that we will be the third state to pass this piece of legislation. And I can tell you that people should not fear about the over policing and arresting in the event that it is banned, because we have language that says we will not punish or penalize individuals who are carrying illicit menthol cigarette or loose menthol cigarette. This is not an Eric Garner case. We are going to look to the manufacturer, the retailers, the distributors, and we're going to find them. But the police has no involvement in this. Okay, it will be the Department of Health that will be doing the enforcement. Police will not have any role in enforcing the banning or the non-use of menthol cigarettes or flavored tobacco. So we want people to know that we had specifically wrote language to address that. And we all know that cigarettes did not kill Eric Garner. Okay? We all know that. So that's our position.
First of all, Assemblywoman, thank you for sharing that. My condolences on the loss of your father. There are many, many of us who have relatives and friends who lost their lives to lung cancer because of cigarettes, smoking, addiction, people who are addicted to cigarettes. I just want to give people some perspective here. Nearly 85% of Black smokers consume menthol products, compared with 30% of white smokers. Now, that's a number from the FDA. Help us understand, why is there such a disparity? Why are 85% of Black smokers smoking menthol where only 30% of whites?
Well, again, in the 1950s, when they were doing a survey, they did see that Black smokers accounted for at least 5%, and now it is 85%. So it's not an accident. They specifically used the product that they felt that Black people, who they particularly targeted, would like. And it was constant advertising, oh, this is the cool way to go, specifically to the Black communities. They were not targeting white communities, and which is where you would find a behavioral change, a behavioral disparity. And so Black people were just hooked on to things that they saw. They saw the billboards, they saw the commercials. Oh, this is what we do. And so when you target and you brainwash a community who's been obviously vulnerable, who's been not aware, not educated about health impact and what tobacco can do to you, it just caused a domino effect, and there's been generations and generations of brainwashing, of addiction, and so forth. I mean, it's the very same reason why, we were impacted. Mostly it was crack in our community, because crack was a drug that was specifically targeted into the low income and the communities of color. Same difference. So
I think it's important to note that the American Cancer Society and the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, which is a leading anti-smoking group, that group has received millions of dollars from former Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and has been out with ad campaigns featuring testimonials from New Yorkers who have lost loved ones to lung cancer, including Hazel Dukes, the president of the state NAACP, who's a staunch ally of the governor. They have been out in support of the ban. I guess what I think might trouble some people, Assemblywoman, it's not the big money that the tobacco companies are spending on lobbying. We expect that, right? This is impacting their profits, it's impacting their revenue. So they're going to spend that money on the lobbyists and trying to get the message out for people to oppose the ban. I think what caught my attention was the Black ministers in New York, and even Gwen Carr, who's Eric Gardner's mother, and other prominent African Americans in New York who have come out against the ban. Help us understand. I think what I read was that the ministers were, again, noted what you talked about, that this would lead to an underground menthol market for cigarettes, and they could increase encounters with police. They were concerned about that. That sounds not all that persuasive of an argument when you think about the health crisis, you think about the health impact, you think about, we all know that cigarettes are killing people and disproportionately in the Black community. Are there any more substantive, persuasive arguments other than that one about the law enforcement interaction? Because that seems, I got to just call it what it is, that seems weak.
Yes,
as F. That's all I can say. It's weak as F. That is just downright stupid of an argument to be making when we know people are dying of lung cancer. So maybe they have a better argument that's not in this article I'm reading. Help me understand their argument.
Yeah, I mean, look, you said it correctly. That's one big, myth, fake news. These big tobacco are blowing smoke in our faces with fake opposition points and predatory marketing. They're just lying and making up excuses on why they should be here. I mean, saying if we ban menthol or flavored tobacco, it would create a black market or illicit market is not a good reason to stop a product that has been traditionally, historically killing Black people disproportionately. Saying that, it's a choice that we're taking from Black people is not a good reason why we would allow to our communities, our youth to be exposed to something that has been deadly. Saying that, it's going to lower tax revenue is not a reason to state that, because if anything, it drives up health costs, which far surpass the tax revenue that they would be getting on these cigarettes. I mean, we already have a healthcare disparity in our communities, and to tax this on will just continue to drive costs that a lot of our hospitals cannot even sustain. Okay,
Yeah.
This is, smoking is a preventable disease. Okay, we don't have to smoke, period. Okay, and we will live longer. We'll have healthier organs, our lungs and our heart, and they can't say that this will over police. As mentioned, the legislation was written so that there's no police involvement. The whole Eric Garner using that is crazy, because we all know that he was not killed because he had cigarettes. Okay, he was killed because of racism, because of police misconduct, and so forth. Racial profiling, that's why he was killed. He was not killed because of cigarettes. So,
we're running out of time, Assemblywoman, but I do want to get this in. Where is the bill in terms of the likelihood of passing? Now, I know that the $1 per pack tax increase, there's support for that. But what do you think this part about banning menthol cigarettes in the state, do you think that's going to pass in this Democratic legislature, particularly given all of the opposition?
Well, it's something that we're still negotiating, and it could be used for something else. So there's been some opposition, I would say. I'm not going to lie about that. There's been some opposition from leadership on banning the tobacco. I think that New York State leadership and legislature are just not there yet to completely ban it, although myself and many other legislators and the governor are ready to move past it. So probably unlikely this year, but we're hoping that maybe in the near future, we'll be able to ban it if it doesn't happen in this budget.
I mean, I don't want to accuse anyone of taking money from big tobacco, but we do know that oftentimes these big companies come into our community, they go to our faith leaders, they go into our community organizations, our nonprofits, and they drop a lot of money. And they use that money to persuade people to get on board with campaigns that are not in the best interest of African Americans. I again, have no evidence that that's happened in New York. So I'm not accusing anyone of that, but we do know that happens all too often. I hope that anyone that's in a leadership position in New York or anywhere around the country is not making decisions about the health and welfare of our community based on getting a few dollars. And I do say a few dollars because it ain't enough money to change nothing in our community long term, that they're not using that to, again, make decisions that otherwise are not in our best interest. Thank you so much, Assemblywoman Rodneyce Bichette Hermelin, for your advocacy on this issue. I am fully in support of this. I hope this becomes a federal ban, and even if New York can't get it across the finish line in this legislative term, maybe it'll come back in another legislative term as more education, more advocacy is done. But anything that we can do to save Black lives, to improve the health of Black people in this country, I think we all need to stand up and support it. And yes, these are tough votes to make, but that's what people go into public office to do. You get elected to make the tough choices. And you obviously, for personal reasons and professional reasons, have made a tough choice, but I think it's a choice that, would inure to the benefit of so many African Americans and others as well. So again, thank you for joining me today. We're going to be watching this issue very closely, see what happens in New York, see what happens on the national level, as well as we look to see what the FDA does with a very similar issue. Stay with us. More on the bombshell news about Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search. We are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me. Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4, only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black.
And KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And
I'm back, and you have to have been under a rock not to see the bombshell news happening in cable news today. Two very popular but yet controversial hosts were either let go or parted ways with their networks. Tucker Carlson, who was a big host at Fox News, who drew millions of viewers every night, has parted ways with Fox. Some say he was terminated. We'll talk about what termination means versus parting ways. And then Don Lemon's CNN host, Don Lemon, who's been with the network for 17 years, tweeted out that he was stunned that he was let go today without having any indication that he was on the chopping blocks. And CNN responded pretty quickly saying, no, that's not accurate. That's not how it happened, that he was given an opportunity to talk with management, but he chose not to. But in any event, whenever you see big name talent let go or voluntarily leaving, jobs that they've had for years, the question I'm always asking as a civil rights lawyer and as an employment lawyer is, what does it mean for really the payoffs, if there will be payoffs or payouts in these cases? Because in employment law, you're always looking to see, is there going to be a lawsuit? Is there going to be a wrongful termination? Maybe an age discrimination case? Both of these guys are over 40. Don is a black man. Is there a race discrimination lawsuit? So here to help us make sense of all of this news today is my colleague, Angela Reddock-Wright. She is the host of Legal Lens right here on KBLA every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. She's also an employment mediator. So she sees lots of employment cases and is the perfect expert to help us understand what's happening in both of these cases. Although neither of us have seen the contracts for Tucker Carlson or Don Lemon, we have been around enough employment cases to have a pretty good idea about what's going to happen next. Thank you so much, Angela, for jumping on so quickly and helping us make sense of this news. So first thing I want to ask you is, a lot of people are going to be scratching their heads saying, how can these guys get let go without any apparent warning or notice? What obligation, if any, does an employer have in these cases to give notice or warning to, talent like a Don Lemon or Tucker Carlson?
Right. Well, first, Areva, thank you so much for having me on. It's such an honor. And your show is called In Real Time. And so these stories broke in real time. And so thank you for having me on for us as we continue to try to dissect what's happening here. But in terms of notice, most employees are not in the entertainment industry, for example, are what we consider at will, meaning unless they're a union and they're subject to some type of union contract, it means that they can be terminated at any time for any reason unless that reason is unlawful. But what we see in the entertainment industry is that many celebrity hosts and top actors, actresses, etc. in entertainment usually have a contract of employment. And I'm sure that's what Don Lemon had here, as well as Tucker Carlson. And that contract probably committed the network to them for anywhere from 3 to 5 years, most likely, for a certain amount of money guaranteed, probably with some bonuses tied to it as well. But those contracts generally say that if something happens that is without cause or something that is against moral turpitude, so to speak, then we can fire you without cause. And if we fire you without cause, that means we don't necessarily have to honor the other terms of the contract, i.e. continue to keep you employed through the full term of the contract or pay you out for the full term of the contract. I'm sure that that's going to be at issue.
So when you're fired for cause, and cause can mean you've done something that's against the company policy, there's a lot of hay being made about this big Dominion settlement that Fox just did, $787.5 million, so $750 million. And we saw some emails from Tucker Carlson during this discovery process of that lawsuit where he was saying basically he couldn't wait to get Donald Trump off the news, that he pretty much hated Donald Trump. And other comments. And there was always this suspicion that heads would roll after that. But then we're also hearing that Tucker Carlson has been the subject of a discrimination lawsuit by a staffer who said he made anti-Semitic comments to her. And possibly that's an article in the LA Times suggesting that it had more to do with that lawsuit for discrimination than the Dominion voting settlement. But when you hear that someone is saying Tucker Carlson made anti-Semitic comments, isn't that what he did pretty much every night on Fox? So would that be cause to fire him? I mean, he made Fox money by being this bombastic, outspoken, controversial host, journalist, anchor.
Yeah, on every protected characteristic there is. Yes.
So why now? Why be upset now when that's what he did every night that made him such an audience draw?
That is a great question and analysis, Areva. First, thought you think, well, he's probably being fired as a result of this settlement. But based on, obviously the case didn't go to trial, so we didn't get all the dirty details of what was happening. But we got, reports throughout the time of the litigation from the depositions and so forth of what kind of evidence was going to come forward. And the evidence suggested that, heads were going to roll throughout the company, from the top to all the way to Carlson and others even below him, that even Rupert Murdoch himself was being accused of having supported this on-air conduct. So when you look at that, you say, okay, they couldn't have just terminated him because of the settlement, because so many people were a part of that. But my feeling is that they, as a result of the settlement, they're now trying to clean house. They're probably going to try to put a new face, not necessarily not controversial, but try to start start afresh and put a new face to Fox News, still a station that's probably heavily leaning conservative and bombastic and so forth. But I have a feeling they're going to try to bring some of that back. And Tucker Carlson was the face of all of that. Even with the other hosts, everyone always pointed to Tucker Carlson. So I think they probably looked at that lawsuit, looked at the claims against him, even though he, like you said, he's on air every day making offensive comments. But they're probably using those two things together as a basis for terminating him. And since you put it that way, Tucker may have a better opportunity to get a severance than even Don Lemon's because of who he was, and because he'll be able to make that argument is I always offended people, so why are you firing me now? So
yeah, there are reports out that both Don and Tucker have called one of Hollywood's big name entertainment lawyers, a lawyer who has been involved in these kinds of lawsuits before. There's no confirmation of that, but we know if you've been terminated from a contract, and we can imagine these are both multi-million-dollar contracts,
right,
that you're going to be seeking some kind of legal counsel. And just playing devil's advocate, and I am by no stretch of the imagination a Tucker Carlson or a Fox News fan, but as an employment lawyer, I'm thinking, look, I'm going to be saying I got paid the big bucks because I insulted people, because I crossed the line, because I said things that were outrageous. That's why viewers tuned in. That's what made me such a big star. That's what, caused Fox to pay me the big bucks. And now,
and for Fox to benefit from that personality.
Oh my God, to benefit tremendously to the tune of billions and billions of dollars, and to be the #1 cable news show repeatedly, drawing in more than some, periods 9 and 10 million viewers when the other cable stations were, way behind, 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million. So my guess is Tucker may have a pretty substantial argument as to why he should be paid something. And, just remains to be seen what kind of fight Fox wants to put up. When we come forward, I want to talk about Don Lemon, because Don Lemon's situation, we're hearing about allegations that he was rough on women. We know about the comment he made about Nikki Haley, but we also saw the president of CNN talk about moving Don from his nighttime show to the morning, and how much he was counting on Don to help make that morning show a success. How might those comments be used by Don Lemon and his attorney, assuming there is any kind of action against CNN, when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black.
KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a
I'm back with my colleague, employment law attorney and employment mediator, Angela Reddick Wright. She's the host of Legal Lens on KBLA every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. And she's here to help us break down in real time what's going on with Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon, both who parted ways with their networks today. So let's talk about Don Lemon, Angela. We know he was one of CNN's most recognizable star anchors. He had a reputation as a fiery political commentator. He was in his own primetime show for 8 years, show named after him, Primetime with Don Lemon. But he started to lose some support in February. He had been moved to a morning show with 2 female co-hosts, and he made this comment about Nikki Haley, a 51-year-old Republican presidential candidate. His comment was something about she isn't in her prime, I'm sorry, or something to that effect. And women were outraged. They thought the comment was dismissive. They thought it was sexist. And apparently he got into a tiff with his co-host. There are also reports that he was complaining about one of the co-hosts interrupting him. He wasn't accustomed to sharing the mic with 2 co-hosts. And then there are also reports out now that he had issues with other women inside the organization. But I think what's I'm thinking about is the fact that when Don was moved from that nighttime primetime show to the morning show, and that's a slot that CNN has struggled with for years, that the president of the organization talked about the fact that this wasn't a promotion because people on Twitter went crazy saying Don is being promoted. And, the standard word from the organization was, no, this is not a promotion, that we have so much confidence in Don that we're moving him from night to day because we want him on this show that we're investing a lot in. And we think he's the guy that can help make the morning popular.
Right.
So if the president is praising you, fighting back against the notion that you're being demoted, saying that you're going to a project that the president is particularly interested in, and then several months later, you're terminated, does that give him, you think, any solid grounds for arguing that this termination is perhaps pretextual?
I think so. As you said, even with Tucker Carlson, he's going to have some good, strong arguments. I mean, overall, Don had been with CNN for 17 years, and he went on Twitter after he, supposedly learned of the termination to say that this came as a surprise to him. And CNN pushed back and said, no, there's another side to the story. So we don't know for sure what happened, what Don knew or didn't know, but for sure he'd been there for 17 years. So it's arguable that he should have been given more notice. That I know there was an investigation following the Haley comments, and he was placed on a suspended leave for some time. So perhaps what happened is that CNN asked him to do some additional things to show he was more apologetic or show that he had changed or would be different, and perhaps he didn't commit to that at the level that they were looking for, so they moved forward with the termination. But I I think, Don, not quite as bombastic as Tucker Carlson, obviously, and also on a progressive liberal side. But Don, as you said, has a reputation for being on the cutting edge and for saying the things on his mind. And I think in this instance, he probably went too far in the minds of his colleagues, and the president of CNN and the powers that be were kind of placed between a rock and a hard place, having someone who gets great ratings and that they were hoping will help to build their morning show, but at the same time had offended his colleagues, offended viewers, and I don't think they could find a way back from that unless Don showed more humility. And it's my sense that because he didn't show the level of humility that they were looking for, they felt they had no option but to terminate. And particularly because more stories came out after the Nikki Haley story.
But what obligation, Angela, would a company have before they moved him and made these, announcements praising him? Wouldn't you expect a company to have this information about these complaints about how he treated women? So, I'm thinking as any employee, if your boss comes out and says, you're great, you're so great, I want to put you on a special project, you're probably presuming whatever negative history there is on you in that company, they know about that. And they've said that negative history is okay. And despite that history, we're still going to give you this plum position.
And I'm sure they did know. I'm sure that complaints have come forward in the past that none of this was a surprise, or not all of it was a surprise for sure. But that, that Nikki Haley comment with his colleagues, because remember when he was on in the evenings, he had his own show, right? So if he offended anyone, it wasn't necessarily his co-host. It might be viewers or people behind the scenes. But now he's sitting at the desk with two other anchors, and he, clear from their perspective, they claim that he definitely offended them. So I think that changed the equation, that now he had to kind of get along with others. And then that just caused this roller coaster effect where all these other stories came out and were now public, where CNN may have been able to push some of that, under the rug or under the carpet in the past, but now they have to publicly deal with these issues. And I think, once they had to publicly deal with it and respond, because they fired Como for, going on air to support his brother, right? They, they fired the head of CNN for for a relationship with one of his coworkers from a subordinate. So they were probably in a position when they looked at the litany of terminations they've had in this last year, that if they didn't take action in this instance, they really wouldn't have credibility. And did Don have a right to know? I mean, again, it depends on the terms of his contract. His contract probably says with good cause, there could be an immediate termination without notice. But here, they're going to argue that they did, at a minimum, do an investigation on the Haley incident. They took action. And once other things came to their attention, but I have a feeling like you, that they were aware of these other things. So once it became public, they felt they had to move forward with more stringent employment action.
Yeah, no doubt. We have seen lots of movement in cable news, not just with CNN. MSNBC has had, some terminations, some transition. People have been let go. Some who people believe should be let go. We've seen that with Fox. Bill O'Reilly, who was one of Fox's biggest anchors and biggest, viewer drawer, attraction for viewers, was let go. So all of these terminations show us that no one is irreplaceable. And no matter how big you get on a show or, in any job, that your bosses always maintain the power to get rid of you. But I guess we can't have this conversation about Don without talking about race. So Don, Angela, was moved to a show with two white women. What role, if any, do you think race may have played, or do you think race will come up if Don does move forward with any kind of legal action?
Well, that definitely is the elephant in the room. And I would say that what Don's termination demonstrates is that women And when women speak up, they have a lot of power and a lot of influence, as is demonstrated by the Me Too movement, as demonstrated by the reproductive rights movement. We see that when women come together to speak and to stand up, that generally corporate America responds. Is there a racial element here? For sure, that is a major possibility. But what I think CNN will be able to stand on in response to that is that they've taken other action against non-African American hosts and executives in this last year, and they'll be able to argue that in those instances, when information came to them and when complaints came to them, they took, adverse action. So they're doing so with Don. They will argue has nothing to do with race, but I'm sure there will be questions raised about the racial element, the potential racial element here.
In these cases, Angela, typically when there is someone who leaves a big organization like a network or a cable station, or even a drama show, we often don't see what happens. There'll be a lot of news coverage about it for the first few days, maybe this, be in the news for a week, but then it's going to die down. Both of them are going to find other things to do. They're both talented. They both have substantial relationships. They'll go on, and whether it's another network or a cable station or, their own podcast or something, I'm sure they're, they're young and they're going to resurface in some way. But, do you think we should? And the reason we won't is because if there is a settlement of any kind, we know typically they're kept confidential. Right. That both sides agrees that whatever is decided upon, like you mentioned Cuomo. So Cuomo now has a show on another network. He's still reporting the news. We know he talked about suing CNN for, I think I read someplace, maybe it was $100 million or some huge amount of money. We don't know what happened with that because there are settlement agreements that often make those resolutions confidential. Do you think there's any value? I know with Me Too, there was a conversations at one point about making settlement agreements when they happen with women who were sexually harassed at work, making those agreements public. Do you think there's any value in these cases of having these types of settlements be available to the public?
Well, not the full. I'm a mediator, so I, see this every day. And so my thoughts on this are probably a little biased. I think making full agreements public kind of goes against the interests of resolving cases outside of the court system and incentivizing both companies and individuals to reach settlements. So I think if you disclose everything as a part of a settlement, in the long term, it has the effect of maybe discouraging settlements. So being a big supporter of mediating and resolving matters outside of court, I would say that's not the direction we want to go in. But what the Me Too movement did do, it says that you can disclose, any facts or issues kind of leading up to your case, but you have to keep the terms of the actual amount paid can be kept confidential. So in this instance, we may not know the amount that it's settled for, but if they act based on the principles of what we saw in the Me Too movement, there may be a part of the agreement that allows them to speak. But I have a feeling that both sides or all sides have a lot to lose by speaking more than they already have, and that they're all going to have a vested interest in wanting to keep it as confidential as possible.
Well, we've got to leave it there. Thank you so much, Angela. Catch her on Saturdays right here on KBLA at 11 a.m. And the next voice that you hear will be Robin Ayers and the Raw Report right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time.